You don't want Iron Man fighting with the Hulk. You want them to be the Avengers. And at some point, you galvanize a team, and the four of us are the Avengers. Of course, I'm either Iron Man, or if we flip to the other multiverse, I'm Batman, of course. But and Batman I love because he's not actually a superhero. He's just a human who works really hard and does good for the world. But yeah, so the idea is you have to let go. You have to be okay with yourself or others failing. You have to be okay with others leaving. And it sucks.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the three pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is Jeff Meyers. Jeff returns to the Building Scale podcast for his second episode. Still owner, CEO of DS Architecture, a leading design firm in Cleveland. He champions culture-based design approach focused on people and design excellence. Jeff also is passionate about connecting architecture and society to make a difference. He advocates for mental health through National Alliance on Mental Health and promotes diversity in the AEC industry. DS Architecture is built on the principle that people come first, combining innovative design with a strong cultural foundation. And more bio funness on Jeff, just go back and look at episode 9, which was an eternity ago. We probably recorded it 3 years ago. So episode 9, we're above 120. I think for Building Scale proper without the building connections, it's like 117 is what your episode is. So welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Woo, woo, woo. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes.
If you're not
watching, we're all rocking hats, Christmas hats. Will has a bear ski hat on, but that's the Chicago Christmas, as he says.
Yeah, we're all bums over here with the season that we've been having. So I'm just gonna leave it at there.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us, it's been, like I said, about 3 years. What's happened? What has happened? What's growth look like? What's going on in the firm? What's new? Tell us everything.
Well, I mean, first, we're still having fun.
Right.
That's the most important thing. We are entering in a time of, since the first transition from Dave Summers to me, we're entering a time of new partnership, which will start and wrap up by the end of next year. So that's very exciting. We are having one of our best years of profitability ever. New clients, some new staff, and competing now at the top level in Cleveland. We are, I think 3 years ago, you heard me talk about becoming the premier culture-based design firm. I'll go out there and say we are the premier culture-based design firm in Cleveland, Ohio, right?
Ooh, laying down the smack.
Yeah,
no, for sure. New partners, that's very, very exciting. So what does that look like? What new partners in the next year? Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's individual Eric Prose, who's our director of design, extremely creative. When I became partner in 2010, the first hire I wanted to make was somebody who was design oriented. And I reached out to Kent State and the professor there, who was the associate dean. I said, I want your most creative person in the last 5 years. And Eric Prose was his name. And he had job offers at all the major firms, and we were a small 4-person firm. And he joined us for the simple concept that I promised growth. And so here we fast forward to 2004, and he'll be one of the partners. Our business development director will be elevated to a partner, and our CFO, CO will be a partner. Interestingly, though, Eric and I will be the only 2 architects. Felicia is our CFO, COO, not trained as an architect. And Phil Lanier, our business development and marketing director, who is not an architect, will be promoted to partners. Little different. A lot of firms are all focused on architects, and we want a diversity of ownership.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. Real quick, back up for 1 second. Why pursuing this path? Why partnership? Why bring on? I mean, aren't you diluting sort of your equity stake?
Well, that's interesting. It depends on how you think about money and the concept of money. 100% of $100 will is $100. 10% of $10 million is a lot more than $100. So the idea is, yeah, while the percentage may decrease, the idea of having others buy into the growth of the company, investing in them and them investing in me, it's a value proposition. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Could I make more if I kept the firm together and was the sole owner, right, as a staff? And, I'm 45 and 25 years, sell it. Could I make more money? Maybe. That's a big gamble, right? To me, the value proposition isn't there. The idea of bringing these individuals on now, we've been through, me and Eric been through 13 years together. Me and Felicia, 8 years together as our integrator or COO, CFO. Phil for 4 or 5 years. We know we can go through wars together, and we know we're all going to benefit from each other. So, unlike the Bears, we're going to be a winning team.
Listen, you're a Browns fan. You don't get to say those things.
True.
So we heard a ton about Felicia on the first episode. I remember being, that cornerstone, that rock, that operator to your visionariness. So what has it been like kind of giving some reins over to other people, right? So Phil, you said Phil's in BD marketing seat, or, kind of leads that. What does that look like? That used to be the thing that you did.
Yeah, that's how I made my way to partner, and it's how we grew the firm. It's been almost literally a full year where I turn over the reins. I don't review potential leads. Phil reviews potential leads, even my leads that I bring in, and I still bring in about 50% of the revenue of projects, but I still give it to him, and he makes final decision on pursuit or no pursuit. And I was averaging about 40 to 42%. The national average for architects is 40 to 60. If you are hitting above 60%, the idea is your fees are too low, and that's why you're getting hired. And if you're under 40, the idea is that your brand has something wrong with it, or you're growing. And so you're going from AAA to Major League Baseball, right? And so you're not going to hit as high of a percentage. I turned it over, and I am sad but very happy to say he hit 52% this year. So how's it going? It's amazing. And I will say the benefit to that is he looks at it a different way. I'm looking at it from a business end. I need cash flow, revenue, etc. So I will chase more than he will, but he'll be like, well, this is the type of project we want. And he's not burdened with the idea of cash flow, right? And that's a good thing. And for a couple of years, I was ready to turn it over. And finally, we decided as a business team last year that I would turn it over, and proud of myself for delegating and elevating. And I didn't know he was hitting 52% until the end of the third quarter. And we had our leadership team meeting last week, and it was our best surprise. And that is my best surprise, is that how he's done. Yeah. And then flip side, turning over design to Eric, that's been a long process, but it probably happened about 4 or 5 years ago. And he really focused on this concept of thought leadership and building a brand of design. We now have award-winning projects, and I think our portfolio can compete against anybody. But the big thing in the last year is Eric was able to attract major design directors and senior interior design leaders from other firms that come to us, and they brought their portfolios. So turning over design to him has also created more opportunity. And this is why the idea of leadership, our business is better because of Felicia. Our business development and marketing is better because of Phil. Our design is better because of Eric. And so the true thing is get good people and get the out of the way.
That's always true. People, obviously we believe people being a foundation for scale, right? Like you need to have the right people, you need the right processes and put the right technology in place. And people, they cease to surprise me at this point. I feel like every time I hear an amazing story like yours, right, the example of yours, I'm like, of course, because when you put the right people in the right seats, they do unbelievable things, and that's how business goes.
We noticed something and for those that are not actually watching the actual video version of this, Jeff is in a very open environment, and his desk doesn't look any different from anyone else. If anything, you got schustered away from operations, probably to prevent operational chaos.
Absolutely. Visionary whiplash.
So typically we see kind of leadership being schustered away, but into offices, right? Where they have their own office, corner office or otherwise. Why don't you have, I mean, it's a very open layout, open design.
Yeah, it's,
why don't you have your, essentially office, in some corner closed off?
Well, I would say, leaders eat last. And, what I mean by that is, without the team, the leader is nothing. And in order to kind of make that statement on a daily basis, I sit in the open studio. I sit at the same size desk. I can overhear things, which is good and bad. And they can overhear me having meaningful conversations with clients about difficulties or about the idea that we don't negotiate fee, we negotiate scope. I'm also very approachable, right? And so they can come up and interrupt or ask a question just like they could anybody else, right? I can jump up and participate in a design meeting. It's just the idea of collaboration, which is one of our core values. But it's also about making a statement. I'm just one player on the team. And when I played professional ultimate frisbee, I bought jackets for everybody that said 127th. There were 27 players on the team. And the idea was we can only do our 127th. And when a big game comes on, we don't need our stars to do 2 or 3 27ths. Just do your 127th and we're going to be good. And that's the same concept I brought to the firm. Everybody do your role. Everybody be excited about your role. Be excited about what other people are doing. But we're all just equals. We just happen to have different positions inside of DS architecture. So I don't need to be a bigger desk. We have areas we can go do HR type stuff, et cetera, but day to day, I'm just another player.
Very interesting. I love how you talk about that, as well as the 127th, or essentially 1 over part. Why is it? We've definitely seen this, especially at the partner level, where the partners are sort of dual rolling. The one role is sort of, let's say, the BD bringing on. And then the other part is the business side. And then sometimes the third hat is they're still doing design work, right? So, how are you able to manage this or make sure that that's happening?
Well, a scorecard, as the current 100% owner and excited in the next 5 years to have, 30% of that to other people. The scorecard tells me that I can let go, right? It's a simple 1-0 matrix. 8 most important things in the firm. So if I see ones there, that knows that we're hitting the goals that we set as a group. So it was the hardest but best thing I've ever did is let go, because as a leader, the biggest hurdle to growth is yourself. And if you are a funnel that every decision needs to be made from, you cannot grow. That is just the fact. You cannot scale. So decisions need to be made by other people, and for me, it was architect, project manager, shifted to business development, shifted to, kind of, marketing and overseeing that whole thing and growth to visionary CEO. And every time I did that, I had to let go of something. And I'll be honest, who my staff doesn't, I'm afraid to be an architect again. I don't know how buildings are put together anymore. Specifications scare me. But I had to let go of everything, and now I have to let go of the leadership roles of the major functions of the firm. And if I don't, I will prohibit us from growing. Luckily, I've had people that have gone through personal, with my mental health, which, we'll talk about it, I think, at some point, but previously talked about in the last podcast. Trust them personally, and I trust them professionally. And there's a concept, a book called Radical Candor, and you can challenge people professionally if you care about them personally. And we all do that, the 4 of us. So letting go is the idea of growth. It's a value proposition again, Will.
So you mentioned decision making, right? So how is that done now, and how do you see that changing and I know your leadership team's been together for a while, so this hopefully doesn't have a massive amount of change to it. But how does it look today? And then what changes may happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing formal right now. It's a kind of a pinky swear or handshake, but when we're making big decisions for the firm, and this literally just happened last week this is a very timely conversation, happened at our annual conversation. But generally speaking, when the business team needs to make decisions, there are 4 of us at the table, those 4 individuals I talked about. We all try to represent our box or our position. And Felicia does a good job because she's the leader of that group of letting us interject our personal feelings and protecting our boxes at the same time. She does a good job of that. But at the end of the day, decisions are made one of 3 ways. Consensus, which happens 95% of the time. Majority, that's probably 4% of the time. And Felicia could be losing 3-1, and she makes a decision, and that's the decision. And you would say, well, you're the owner, Jeff. Why aren't you making the decision? Well, if I have to make every decision in the firm, I am not free to think big picture. I self-negotiate against myself. I say, well, that's risky, right? And I allow Felicia to play the role of keeping an eye on not dying while I can put my full strength into growing, right? So these 2 things, it's allowing me to be more free. So recently we were discussing potentially bringing on another service line. And me, Eric, and Phil were all in. Let's go. Let's do this. And Felicia wrote a little sticky note and put it on the table. It says, mission critical architecture. We got 3 more years of this. And until that, we're not allowed to explore these other service lines. And I whined, and Phil whined, and Eric's like, I can see your point of view. And about after 10 minutes, she's like, we're done. We're moving forward. And so the idea is she did the right thing. It took me a day, 2 days to stop whining to myself and pity and, all this great opportunity. But if we chase something else, we're going to forget our core competency. So that's how it currently works. I will say 99.9% of the time, that's the way it works. As the owner right now, I do have the ability, if I want to say, nope, I don't care. We're doing this. I've done that maybe 2 or 3 times over the last 7 years with her. When they become partners, there will be a provision in our operating agreement where if the 3 of them outvote me, doesn't matter if I own 95% of the firm, they win. And I think, again, that protects the firm from my neurodivergence and also my optimism. They're kind of interrelated, but I can be too optimistic, right? So we need to protect. There's 20 of us. If you add their kids and their significant others, we're responsible for the lives of 50 people. And it shouldn't be, nor do I want it to be, all Jeff Meyers, right? So
very astute. It's very long forward thinking, and to be aware, that level of awareness, I think requires being able to step back for not just a moment. I think it requires stepping back for a lot longer to have, call it a clarity break, to be able to relish what you are and what you're not good at. To give up that control, super hard. For those that are going through sort of letting go, right? Because it does require trusting your team, etc. How did you get over it? Essentially letting go, right? So that they can make the decisions and not just you.
Well, wow, I hadn't thought about this in that way in a long time. Well, the company had 6 people who got together in 2015 to allow us to grow, and we followed a concept of EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, or the book's called Traction. And the book tells you that at least 1/3, if not more, of the group that gets together will be gone by the time it's truly implemented. Here we are 9 years later, and only me and Eric out of those 6 remain. So we actually lost 2/3. And what you have to do is understand that when you set a vision, a new vision or a rethought vision, not everybody's going to be aligned with that. But if you don't trust and you don't let go and you don't let others fail and learn and or fail and leave, where then you failed and learned, right? You can never do this concept that I have. we've had some major, quote, earthquakes in the firm where at one point I brought in about a third of the revenue and two others brought each in a third. And those two others have left. And because of the team I have together at the leadership level, the first time we kind of panicked. We were like, what are we going to do? We just lost a third of the frontline driver bringing in the revenue. We panicked. We talked about all kinds of quick ownership transition type ideas to get others bought in so they wouldn't leave. We talked about maybe do we sell? We paid for a professional valuation, maybe to go to the market. And then it kind of smoothed out. And then just a little over a year ago, another 1/3 of our revenue is no longer with the firm. And we all said, we're going to be fine. We've been through too many wars. This is going to be fine. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but we're going to be fine. And so I guess it takes time. It takes alignment, of a direction. You don't want Iron Man fighting with the Hulk. You want them to be the Avengers. And at some point you galvanize a team and the four of us are the Avengers. Of course, I'm either Iron Man, or if we flip to the other multiverse, I'm Batman, of course. But and Batman I love because he's not actually a superhero. He's just a human who works really hard and does good for the world. But yeah, so the idea is you have to let go. You have to be okay with yourself or others failing. You have to be okay with others leaving. And it sucks. It's really hard. But then you get a team that's galvanized and a team that believes that we're going to inspire together and move Earth one inch closer to good together. Nothing can rock us. Nothing.
I love... Go ahead, Justin.
There's so much truth in conflict together, right? Like not conflicting internally, but like facing conflict as a team, and like how much that brings you together and then brings confidence to when the next conflict comes of, oh my God, like we're like, not a big deal. Like we're going to get through this. Like, yeah, it'll be hard. Like, we're not like oblivious to the concept. This isn't, business isn't easy. However, like we're totally going to be fine. And like, then now, fast forward this year and like the firm's, awesome. It's growing and everything. Like, it can be a dark days. And if you let those dark days, affect you and get gloomy, like, that can have the negative effect, or the opposite of it is like, yeah, this will be hard, but like, we're going to get through it. So it's fine.
There's I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he did a lot of, inspirational speaking back, like in the middle of the last century. So like 30s and 40s, public speaking. And he said, when it is summer, the winter will come. And then when the winter comes and it's the darkest day of the year, you have to believe that summer will come. And what makes people great or businesses great is the moment that spring starts, you start preparing for winter again. You don't celebrate spring. You start preparing for winter because guess what? Winter's coming, right? And I will say that's my team's belief that to protect those 50 people, 20 in the staff, but their kids and stuff, we always have to be thinking about summer and thinking about winter.
And tomorrow is literally the longest day of the year, or the shortest day of the year. Literally tomorrow.
That's interesting. So yeah.
Very fitting.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a good segue for something that we had talked about in the pre-call, is around decision making as well, and sort of when arguments do arise, right? Because I think all different people, coming from different backgrounds. And you talked about decision making on client greater than company, greater than team, greater than self. You want to reflect on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a concept that we discussed in the pre-call, and I love that Will, I love that you create the thought in me that I maybe have had but couldn't articulate. I love this concept about when there's conflict and you're debating or arguing, maybe even getting heated. Who are you arguing or debating for? Is it for yourself? Is it for the team? Is it for the company or the client? And you have to decide where you're arguing from and where the other person may be coming from to have true conflict resolution. And I've reflected on that. I have that in my notes to bring up at our state of the company. which is on January 10th. So I love these type of things because I learned something and I love learning. And so, I like this concept, Will.
Why not the other way around? Why not, flip it around? Let's say team first, then company, or company first, then client, then self, right? Why not flip it around?
Well, I think, and I kind of brought this up a little bit, is I think if it's a personal self issue, like somebody passed away or, there's a reason that you can't put team above self, that's fine. But what I understand the concept to be is that this is within the conflict resolution of the business. And so we take that variable out of it. And if somebody's protecting self, team can never succeed. If somebody wants the big office in the corner and wants to be able to shut the door and not have the desk at the same size as everybody else, they're putting self above everybody. Why is client the top of that or the first part of that? Well, we have to pay taxes and bills and insurance and salaries, and the clients have to be happy. That doesn't mean you can't fire clients, right? We're talking about the good clients. Sometimes you need to fire clients, and that's okay. So to me, that's the order it has to go in.
Okay. So when we talked a little bit about this, the conversations, because we've seen a few firms like this, where there's an argument to be made that should even client be part of the sort of this equation, right? So company is essentially company greater than team, greater than self, and client shouldn't even be a factor of this. That it is sort of it's a branch of thinking from the company. Would you agree or disagree with that, and why?
I would. We have 9 psychographic indicators of a client. Must respect architecture, must appreciate our core values, must be growth minded, must be able to be educated, must be well connected, must give back to the purpose greater than themselves. And these 9 things define our ideal client. And if they meet 7 to 9 of those, then client is greater than company, greater than team, greater than self. If they only match 6, then company is greater than team, greater than self, greater than client. So you have to evaluate a client not based on their potential revenue, but on the benefit of what they align with, and ultimately how much stress do they bring to your team. I've fired clients before. It was very interesting the first time I did that when Dave Summers was still a partner. I wrote a letter. That client left for a better fee. And 3 years later came back and goes, I don't need fee proposals anymore. I just need your services. Right. And so that's where we flipped the paradigm. So and every time I fired a client, which probably happened about a handful of times in my, I don't like to say this, 15 years as partner, my staff has come and, been very appreciative, and there's been a weight off of them, and they're more productive, and we make more money. And it's one of those things that's hard to be tangible about, but like the theory of it works, right? So both will.
So
Both.
When did you get these 9 psychographics? Like, when did this idea come into place? That's very smart. It makes sense. Because like, everybody always says like, not all clients are worth the money, or like not all money's good money, right? Like, and that is a way to say like, hey, like we're going to make this more metrical, right? Like, and say like, hey, here are the 9 pieces that you gotta fit into at least 7 of those. Otherwise this relationship's probably not going to work out in the long run.
Well, I'll start with the why that these psychographic, ideas is somewhat what you said, Justin, about not every client's worth it, but not every architect is a match for every client, right? There are firms out there that will succeed with clients that aren't a good fit for us. How do we come up with it? Again, I'm going back to the concept of EOS. It talks about there are 3 ways to attack a market, and it's geographic, your location, the product, or in our case, the typology, higher education maybe. And then the last one is client. And you have to have a way to define all 3 of those. Geographic, we're in Northeast Ohio. Maybe we're national, right? We're talking about, we have an individual who's thinking about opening up an Italy office, right? So that's geographic, all right? Typology, higher education, healthcare. But if somebody asks us to do Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, not our typology, not our product, right? And then geographic or psychographic, the client. Is it the right client? So you have these, it's a very complex Rubik's Cube. And you have to turn the Rubik's Cube and all the sides have to be the same color. And if they're not, walk away from the geographic location. We shouldn't go to Aruba. If it's not the right typology, jails, we should walk away from it. If it's not the right client, we should walk away from it. When you put it in that parameters to me, it's simple.
You made it absolutely simple. I feel like I've talked about this a lot of times with a lot of people, and I've not had them say, hey, like we have X amount, right? You're nine psychographic components that are going to tell us if this client is good or not good for us, right? Like not necessarily for anybody, but like for us in our culture and our environment, what we're trying to achieve, like this is how we know that client fits the culture, not necessarily just the product and just the location, right?
Yeah,
so that's super smart, Jeff.
We have a client that is probably the most intelligent client we've ever had. So intelligent that he can run very fast in his mind, and he can come across very self-assured, which he should be, very educated. And he causes challenges in meetings because he asks questions. And if you don't know the answer to the question, he'll ask another. And if you get to 3 or 4, he gets very frustrated. Rightfully so. He's paying us a lot of money. I'm not so different than with my consultants, right? And so is he the right client for a certain project manager? Maybe not, right? But he only has, he meets 8 out of the 9, right? And only does he not meet the 9 in certain circumstances. But now if you overlay me into those meetings, he's 9 out of 9, right? So the reason we have to hit 7 or 6 to let go is because there's ways to navigate the others, right? And so that's why it's not like, oh, you don't meet this one ideal, we're letting you go. That's dumb. Like there's ways to maneuver 3 of those. There's not ways to maneuver 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, no, because you're a partner, right? You're not just a vendor, right? Like we say that all the time. Like we want to be partners on vendors. We want to be perceived as a partner, not a vendor, because like, yeah, we're going to work with you. Like, so like, hey, like you need something special. You need something that's a little different than, what we're giving you. And that's fine. Now we can't change all of our processes and all of our structures for you. Like we can't do that, but we can adjust because like you're unique as every business is. So I love that. I'm more excited now than ever, Jeff. Thank you so much. I already wrote this down. This will be in our leadership, level 10, come Monday. So
you should never change your process ever.
Yeah. Something else that we talked about, before, and I know you leaned into it, which is creating a team where neurodivergence is not just accepted, you're looking for it. Can you talk a little bit about why and maybe what is there a business advantage as to why you're doing that?
Yeah. I'm not going to rehash the whole past. Go back to episode 9, as Justin said, you can hear my story. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the idea of equity, is, a lot of this concept of white male privilege for me. I grew up in inner city Youngstown, and I was the minority in the minority. And I always say, stack me against a female. I got a 100-meter head start. Doesn't mean I didn't work hard. I worked my ass off, man. Like I came from humble beginnings, food stamps when they were actually food stamps. It doesn't mean I didn't work hard, but I did have an advantage. So, there's the whole, racial disadvantage. There's the whole, female, male, the way you identify yourself or, all that kind of stuff. But for me, there's another, what I call the silent demographic, which is those with mental illness. 1 out of 8 of us are diagnosed with a mental illness, and I am #bipolar. And I will tell you that my bipolar brings amazing ideas of thought, or at least others will tell me that, so I believe it now. But I will, and not to dive deep, but I've had very, very dark times because of my neurodivergence. So the concept is if we're going to lean into this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, well, why do we do that, right? Why is the earth chasing sustainability? I will tell you because it's profitable. Yes, we care about it personally. Yes, we want to leave the world a better place for generations. But if business owners and governments were losing money to be sustainable, they wouldn't do it. And it's the same concept with diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you are able to hire a diverse team, Mark Twain said, if you're the smartest person at a table, you're at the wrong table, right? Mm-hmm. So if we get 5 of our demographic, good looking, weird headbands or hats or whatever at a table, we're not getting value out of that, right? If I surround myself with Felicia and Cliff, who's an African American, and if I'm very proud. I'm a Kent State grad. We have more non-Kent State grads than we do Kent State grads. Diversity of thought, and so diversity of thought comes from a diversity of background. No matter what color you are, or what race you are, or what gender you are, no difference with neurodivergence, right? Like we want people who think outside the box. And I would say all the greats, and I literally mean all the greats you study in your history books, they're neurodivergent. I guarantee it. You can't find one who is not likely one of the, diagnosed mental illnesses. We like to use the word neurodivergence, and I talked about affluent minder last time. So is there a value proposition? Yeah. You know why my company is kicking butt? Is because we share that story, right? And I met with Curtis Moody, who runs the largest African American company, Moody Nolan, who passed away recently. Awesome architect, great man. And I said, what does diversity mean to you? And he said to me, diversity means that anybody that walks into your firm or knows about your firm understands they become CEO of your firm and owner of your firm. That's what diversity is. Always hire the best talent, Jeff. But knowing that others can achieve greatness or the pinnacle of the firm, that's what diversity really is. And for me, that should include neurodivergence. And so, yeah, we have others coming to us, and I bring a unique skill set, just like I do as bipolar, somebody with bipolar, as I do have struggles, right? There's been interviews I couldn't make because I was depressed. We have individuals that are OCD. They have amazing talents, better than most. But if we don't put them in the right seat, failure. But there's a value proposition there. And my firm is a case study of that.
That's powerful. How do you go to attract more? Like how do you, everybody wants to hire diversity in all kinds of different ways. Like how do you go to the market and say, like, we are open? Obviously we want the best talent, but we are open to this because a lot of times mental health is very stigmatized and very much like, oh, that person's bipolar can become a very, heavy thing to say about somebody that has a massive impact on their life and in their careers and all those things.
There's lots of ways to do it. First way is to find individuals that want to hear about it and put you on their podcast, right? You have to be open and proud about it. With neurodivergence, I always say politicians and performers are open about talking about it. Politicians or performers, being athletic or music, they talk about themselves. Politicians talk about family members. There's not a lot of people in our space that talk about it. So just talking about it attracts people, right? And it's a grassroots movement. Maybe it's interesting to think about. Maybe in 10 years, I'll put a sign up on the highway that says neurodivergent, welcome, or something like that. But right now, it's just a grassroots movement. Everybody I meet, you guys or a client or, a consultant, potential team member, I talk about it and how I'm proud of it. We were just in an interview at a major university, second largest university in Ohio, and I talked about it at that interview as a something that makes us different than other firms, right? So you just got to be proud of it, sell it, and it takes time.
Loud and proud. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned EOS a bunch. Let's talk a little bit about that. So you read this book, Traction, a long time ago. You've used EOS concepts throughout the growth of the firm. What does that look like today? Like what things are you doing that are EOS backed or EOS adjacent?
Well, I think no matter what you do, you have to have a system in place. And I think a lot of, for business, and I think a lot of professionals, be it doctors, lawyers, IT, whatever, you're educated on being a deep diver. When I graduated college, I understood architecture very, very deep. And as you run a business, you become a shallow diver, and you have to understand a lot about everything. And you need a system to help you do that. For us, it's EOS and Traction. Gino Wickman, the founder of that concept, when I give him credit, because it definitely changed my life. That concept there is about me letting go, which is a lot of what we talked about. I think in that book, I'm going to paraphrase it, but there's an individual walking across the mountaintop and thinking to himself all the great things he's accomplished and all the great things he's going to accomplish. And then he trips and he falls and he grabs a vine on the way down. And, he starts thinking about, I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do that. And, he looks up and he says, God, he's not really spiritual. Can you help me out? And, God goes from the skies, let go of the vine and you'll be fine. And he looks around. God, is there any other way? Let go of the vine and you'll be fine. So for us, EOS is about letting go. And that's the major concept for me. And now the leadership team, which I talked about, they're starting to let go. So where is that now? That theory of that concept says processes will be your hardest and likely your last thing that you implement. And we are very close to having processes. We grew before and we failed because we didn't have processes, and we've really focused on processes. So right now, that's our biggest thing, processes. For a while there, as a designer and eccentric with a Lego necktie on, the idea is processes will make it not fun. That's not true. Actually, processes, if they're implemented and bought into, gives you more time to do what you want to.
Structure makes people have this concept of structure that it takes away freedom and takes away fun, but it's totally the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Structure makes things way more fun and gives you 1,000% more freedom.
Yeah, if it's scary.
Sure, no question. You're So I think when I think of EOS, and actually you mentioned the 10th of January is your State of the Union or your company call or company rally. Ours is too. In the 2 days prior to that, we have our EOS annual planning session with our implementer. So we're in very similar time frames, and then just kind of vibes.
Well, what I wanted to mention is the thought process around process, and whether or not you automate, whether or not you simplify, right? How close to perfection are you trying to get a process put into place?
Well, the first time we write a process, it's 8 pages, right? And then you refine it, it should become 6. And Elon Musk would say it should become 4 or 3. And you don't have the process right until you start adding back to what you cut, right? Perfection, never. If you have a process that is perfect, you're not growing. You're stagnant. But if you have a process that you don't feel like you need to add to, you should be cutting. And I think, I have I reference a lot of people, but Elon Musk came out with that concept, or at least the first time I heard it. If you don't cut a process to the point where you feel like you have to add, you didn't cut it enough. So for me, perfection is simplicity, right? So, you can have a process and then you can have a bear book behind it, right? So like the idea of a bear book, if you've never heard it, is Jeff's getting chased by a bear. They get in a fight, pray for the bear, I would say, in the fight. But obviously, Jeff lost, right? He tripped and the bear sat on him by accident. You want a bear book because you can't get everything out of my head. So a process is trying to describe that, but you need a bear book to back it up somewhere. So
it's also very true when you hit ceilings, that the processes just generally need to change, right? It worked up to this point, and now it doesn't work anymore. And I think that drives lots of leaders crazy because they're like, we fixed the sales problem, or we fixed the client delivery problem. We fixed those things. These are things we fixed. It's like, yeah, but that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And now you've grown so much that those problems are not the same problems. So you have to change the process.
Yeah. We've never used a talent acquisition company, and we're using a talent acquisition company because we need the right person at the right time. And our word of mouth doesn't do that. And so we changed our process because our number one ceiling right now is getting project architects. And so, but yeah, you have to be able to change. So no, Will, not perfection. It's a journey.
Okay. And when you're going through, you're going to break the process at some point. Do you let the process break, or do you try to stay ahead of it and try to change it before it breaks?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to go back to Felicia. We started our annual conversation last week, and she asked us these questions: personal best for the year, business best for the year, biggest positive surprise of the year, and what ceiling are we going to hit next? And I don't think that's written anywhere in that book, but she asked us, and so they put us in a mind frame of yeah, we have to be thinking about what ceilings are usually process related, right? Usually. And so we all came up with these things that if we don't fix this now, in a year from now, 6 months, 3 years from now, we're going to be in trouble. And so try to stay ahead of it. Saying that, there are times where you can't stay ahead of it, like when your server craps out and your IT company's been telling you for a year, you need to invest $30,000. You're like, I'm not investing $30,000. It breaks, and you're like, well, we didn't stay ahead of that. So,
well, maybe now's a good time to talk a little tech. 8Ball. Last time we spoke, 8Ball was kind of big for you, and one of the reasons you were trying to sort of create 8Ball is to manage, really, I guess, sort of workload, stress levels, etc., burnout. And you were able to do it in a way, or trying to do it in a way where you could actually see the numbers before you hit burnout, right?
Yeah.
Which is really hard to see it until it's already happened. So where's 8Ball now?
Well, as you guys know more than anybody, because we had some offline conversations about 8Ball, Felicia again did the right thing and kept me mission critical and would not give me resources to help this idea of taking that to market. And so I was by myself trying to push it forward, which it's one of those times where I failed and I learned. So we had developed it further, and I still wanted to take it to market. But I think, what 8Ball was trying to be was a firm management software, not a project management software. And a lot of our industry in the AEC field is trying to be project management. And project management, if every project is profitable, then thus the firm has to be profitable. But when a project is not profitable, that person gets shamed or whatever, even though they may have had a client that the partner should have fired and they didn't, right? And so we try to flip the paradigm. As long as the firm is profitable, projects can or cannot be profitable. And the concept of time is man-made, right? So the idea of iteration. So 8Ball was trying to get this idea that we're all together, and as long as the firm hits its billing goals each month and each year, we'll be profitable. And some projects are going to be negative. Some projects will be profitable. But if we're all core valuing out, then we're all working with our core values and there's no concern. So we were getting close with 8Ball, but the project management software we had been using was sunsetting. And so we needed a stopgap until we got 8Ball where it needed to be. It's a very interesting story. Felicia selected a program, and I wasn't part of that process. And that's the delegate to elevate idea. But she selected for some reasons, which are good reasons. But during the implementation phase, it became very clear to both of us it was not the right solution. And so we were kind of behind the 8Ball, no pun intended. And we found a program, and I'm going to give it a plug. It's called Factor AE. And what I hate about it is that it's 8Ball but better. And has built into it, literally, you can see a graph of likely burnout, utilization rate versus billable time. It turns red if somebody's working too many hours. The gentleman who's their main developer over there, we've been on several calls together. He was doing our training and I was asking all these questions as I do. And he's like, I need to talk to you more about these concepts that you're bringing up. Why aren't we doing this or that? And we have a super bro crush on each other. And I get off the line. I'm like, I love that guy, man. This program is awesome. I'm just so upset that they made it better than 8-Ball. And Felicia goes, you run an architecture firm. They want to run a software company. They have 20 people behind that guy developing the software. And so it's better than 8-Ball. I would highly recommend it if you haven't looked at it. Factor AE, it's kind of new and upcoming. But yeah, I also I can't believe they made a better mousetrap. And it's not just better, Will, it's way better. And, but they do have 20 people working on it. So.
Okay. Well,
so that's
appreciate
one of those,
the update. Yeah.
That's one of those lessons. We spent years developing this concept and now it's just thrown out, right? We hit a ceiling, found a better opportunity. You have to know when to let go. You have to.
Well, you found your limit.
Yes.
And Felicia also, maybe it was partially lucky, in the way you went about and kind of found out about this. But this is a way to actually help really you and the firm focus in and growing kind of the next, and building scale and to that next level.
Felicia knows best. That's what we've learned over both of these episodes that we've had. Felicia knows best.
No, do not disagree.
Yeah, this has been amazing. We, as you know, we have a last question that we ask everybody, but we already know what you do if you go back 20 years. So now we want to flip the other side.
Wow.
Where is the firm, or where are you both in 20 years?
You guys didn't prep me for this one.
No,
Did
no.
not.
This is,
and I
this
forgot
is-
about it as soon as you
this is
brought
one
it up.
that we've just thought of. So it makes it more exciting.
I remember exactly how I answered this question in episode 9. Where will we be? We will be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for changing a social condition, both through architecture and the elimination of stigma of neurodivergence. That's where we'll be in 20 years.
Oh man, those are love the shoes. Love the shoes.
Oh my gosh.
And I have unequivocal belief in that we will move Earth 1 inch closer to good.
More power to you. I love that.
More power to all of us.
All of us. Oh my God. This is great. This is so much fun, Jeff. Thank you so much for giving us more of your time. Obviously, you already gave time last time. Listeners, I hope you had a great time. Jeff, I'll throw all your social links and stuff in the show notes. But is there either last parting words or any way that people can contact you if they wanted to?
You look up our website to contact us. Will, Justin, you guys are some of the best people I've ever met. I just pointed out there, I'm very happy with my IT company, but if you're looking for good people to help you out, these two, man, they are just good people.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate that a ton. As I said, listeners, this was just a blast. Blast from the past and blast for the future in 20 years from now. So until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
scale.